Hello, everybody. Let me just have a look and see who is with us. Hi. Um, just getting everything set up here. I'm not sure why this one isn't working. 115, waiting. Studio. So the Facebook is working, but the what's going on? Live. Oh, there we go. Hi, Sam. All right. So it's just 1:15, so we'll give it a couple more minutes here. Oh, you're from Montgomery, Alabama. Nice. Sam, do you host a entire house or a shared accommodation? Oh, the delay between when I talk and when it gets broadcast kills me. Close that. All right. Oh, you have two Airbnbs now. The one listed on Furnished Finders for travel nurses. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's something. Furnished Finders and the whole travel nurse thing is something that doesn't actually. excuse me. It's not a market in Canada, unfortunately for us, but I know that it's a great market in the US. So good for you for doing that. Okay, so 118. Oh, Sam, you have three short-term rentals. Oh, nice. It's even better. Hi, Nikki. Thanks for joining. Okay, well, it's 118, so let's get started. Thanks. So firstly, thanks for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about long-term tenants versus a short-term rentals business. And look, I'm not going to lie to you. The thought has definitely crossed my mind over the last 7 months during the pandemic. But I did make a decision, and as you probably guessed, it's to continue with short-term rentals. But while I was making that decision, I came over 5 factors that really helped me to get to that final decision. So that's what we're going to talk about today, 5 factors to help you decide whether or not you should convert your short-term rentals into a long-term tenant situation. And then So I'll give you those factors, and then at the end we will do a Q&A. I just want to pause for a second and acknowledge that today is Remembrance Day, and so I hope that all of you find time to acknowledge and honor our fallen heroes from the last 100 years. War is really a terrible thing, and so hopefully together we can join together and avoid any future conflicts. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, let me introduce myself. I'm Matt, the creator of Airbnb Uncovered and Airbnb Superhost. I've been a host for about 5 years now, and over that time, I've hosted almost 3,500 guests. These days, I focus a lot of my time on helping new hosts to earn more, which has become increasingly important during the pandemic. And I've been able to do that because I've developed a system that has allowed me to streamline my Airbnbs and allow me really to get in and focus in on the important things to making sure that my guests are happy and that I'm earning a profit. And so that has really kind of freed up some time for me. And that's why I'm here today on this question and answer. So today, as I mentioned, it's all about 5 considerations that you should be considering if you're choosing between operating your short-term rentals business or moving to a long-term tenant. I did an entire video on this, and I go into much more detail in the video. It's uploaded to my YouTube channel, and you can watch that a little later today. But without further ado, let's get into the 5 key factors to consider when trying to decide between a long-term tenancy and a short-term rentals business. The first factor that I think you really need to consider is your financial position. If you're in a financial position where you are extremely dependent on revenues from your investment property, then unfortunately, I really think that you need to strongly look at converting your short-term rentals business into a long-term tenancy. I think that the market is just too unpredictable globally right now. But if you do have a little bit of financial cushion, then I think we need to move on to the second consideration. And that second consideration is the local market. And what you want to look at in your local market is there really a reason for people to visit you? That reason could be that things are reopening and you're a destination. It could also be that you are a cabin or a cottage in a remote location and people want to escape the busyness from day-to-day life, and then so that they can be isolated and they can have more room and just get away from it all. And so if you are in a market that there is a reason for people to visit, then I want you to look at your competition. Look at what the prices are and see if you can make the numbers work at about 85% occupancy. And if you can, then I think you need to keep going with short-term rentals. There's just one little caveat about the market conditions, and that's, so when we look at market conditions, we want to look at what's happening now, and we want to look at what is coming down the pipe. Now, for many of us, that could mean a second lockdown. So when you're running these numbers, you need to factor in that perhaps you might not be able to operate on a short-term rentals basis for maybe 28 to 30 days if there's a lockdown. But also look to see if you think that you can secure somebody for those 28 or 30 days, so that even if it's at a lower rate. So definitely something to consider there. The third factor that I looked at is, what are the tenancy laws in my local area? If you live in a place where tenants have a lot of power and it's going to be difficult for you to evict or end your long-term tenancy, then I think you maybe need to give a bit of pause here, because we know that the pandemic it's not going to last forever. And once it's over, people are going to be resuming to travel and to go on vacations. And so you want to make sure that getting into a long-term tenant doesn't tie your hands indefinitely. The fourth consideration is furniture. And look, I get that this one doesn't really, it's not on the same level as as the other three. So laws and market conditions and your own financial situation. But furnishings is actually a factor here because most long-term tenants don't want to rent a space that is furnished, which means that you have to do something with your furniture. And if you don't have place to store your furniture, then you need to consider the cost of renting a storage unit. And in many instances, when you combine the lower revenue that you would be making from a long term tenant and add the cost of the storage locker, you are probably going to be further behind than if you had continued to run a short term rentals business at a low occupancy. So let me just pause for a second here before I get to the final consideration. And just, I see there's a couple chats. Um, Sam is saying that he has considered going back to long-term rentals, but it's complicated trying to decide what he's going to do with a house full of furniture. And that's exactly my point, Sam. So thank you for for mentioning that. Okay, let me continue. Let me go back to okay. So let's keep going with the considerations. So the final consideration, and it's really the I think what the most important one is, and that's you. Were you a solid host before the pandemic began? And have you been doing all right during the pandemic? If the answer is yes, then I think you are going to emerge out of the pandemic even stronger than you were before you started. But if your hosting stats weren't super solid coming into the pandemic, then I think you really need to ask yourself a question about whether or not you're willing to commit and put in some extra hustle to outperform your competition and secure some bookings. And if you're in this boat, I think that you are taking the right step towards competing and actually earning profit from your short-term rentals business because you're here with me today on the Q&A and I'm here to help you. That's why I do the Q&As. That's why I have a YouTube channel. And that's why I'm going to be launching at the end of the month a course to help you earn more profits during the pandemic. But in the meantime, I think it's really important for you to get a good understanding of where you are right now. And that's why I've created a free quiz to see if you could be making more money from your Airbnb listing. It's only going to take you 5 minutes to complete. And at the end of it, you will see exactly where you are. Trust me, it's well worth taking the 5 minutes to figuring out where you are because it could lead to hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars in additional revenue from short-term rentals. The only catch is you need to be logged into your Airbnb account because questions require information from your Airbnb account so that it can truly give you a real answer about how you're doing. And that's all I had for the top of this live Q&A. I just wanted to give you an overview about the main decision factors when deciding between moving to a long-term tenancy or keeping going with your short-term rentals business. So now let's get into the questions and answers. Sam says all of his homes are debt-free, which is fantastic. So I think you've definitely got the cushion to continue with short-term rentals and really invest in some marketing tactics so that you can fill up those unbooked nights and be on your way to earning a profit even in the middle of a pandemic. I know I always have to wait for a second because the feed from when I'm speaking to when it gets to you is lagged. I think it's maybe a minute or two. Sam's got another question. Yeah, Sam. So Sam says occasionally sour guests really hurt my superhost status. It's very discouraging. One thing you can do is before your guests check out, or even right after they check in, send them a message and ask them how things are. So you want to deal with any potential complaint right up off the bat. And then if you want to follow up with another message right before they check out and just thank them for coming and ask them to rate you highly if they think that you've earned it. If they don't think that you've earned it, you can ask them what specifically is causing them to rate you poorly, and then try to address it before the actual review comes out. Oh, and you do that. Is it still an issue? The slag. Can you send me? Can you put a post or put a link to your Airbnb profile? And if you'd like, I could have a look. And maybe send me an email at matt@airbnbuncovered.com. Oh, you're saying the reviews are infrequent. Yeah, I mean, I get them too. Maybe one in, I don't know, maybe 1 in 100. I'll get something that I'm just not sure about. So the thing to do there is just to comment below and apologize that the guest didn't have a great experience, and highlight that Airbnb isn't for everybody, or there's not always a match, and then encourage the reader to check out all the other great reviews. So below that one. And I think I forgot to post the link to the quiz. So I'll do that now. There we go. Sam says, a rotten guest. Yeah, they exist, unfortunately. But the important thing to remember is that they don't exist that often. And so you've just got to roll with it sometimes. I'm reminded one of my co-hosts, we got not a terrible review, but in the private comments, they left a couple things that I thought were a bit insulting. And so sometimes, and so he called me and he was saying, I'm disappointed with this. Can you message them and find out what's going on? And my response was, I can message them. It's not going to lead you to anywhere. They're just going to reiterate what they've already said to us, and it's done. So I just said, look, it's not everybody. We've delighted a ton of guests, and so we can't let this one bother us. Rich says, do I list on any other platforms like VRBO? I currently do not. And I'll tell you why. My main reservation about listing on pardon my pun, my main hesitation to listing on VRBO or booking.com is about the screening process with guests. So I operate in an area where we've had some real issues with parties. In fact, there have been 2 shootings in Airbnbs where I host, in the exact buildings I host in. And so at this point, I recognize that VRBO and Booking are great platforms to grow the business. I just need to devote a bit more time and figure out how you vet guests through those platforms. The one thing that I do, though, is that I do accept direct bookings from guests that I've A, either previously hosted, or B, guests that I have a really good feeling about. And so I'll transfer them out of Airbnb and onto my direct booking platform. But the caveat there, I guess, is that because they've come through on Airbnb, I've been able to look at their profile. I can see their past reviews, and I'm able to build some trust in the back and forth communication. And then if I think it's okay and it's a long-term booking and we are not long-term, but longer than a night, and I feel comfortable with them, then I'll transfer them to my direct booking site. And the advantage there is that the guest will save the Airbnb fee. I don't actually end up saving much because the Airbnb fee on the host side is 3% and Stripe charges me like 2 point something percent. So really the savings is on the guest side. Yeah, Sam says that VRBO doesn't screen as well as Airbnb, and that's true. And I do know that there are some screening processes that you can undertake on VRBO. It's just that it's a lot more manual. You can request driver's license to be emailed to you, like copies of them. You could request social media profiles, LinkedIn, that kind of thing to do your due diligence. Just waiting for the feed to catch up. Rich, I hope I answered your question. Oh, there's a new question from Rich. Do you prefer white sheets versus color? So that is a age-old question. I definitely do everything white, which has become even more important during the pandemic because washing with hot water and bleach is really key to killing coronavirus as well as other germs. I'll give you a little bit of background too about why I do that. So when was that? About 3 years ago, Airbnb did an Airbnb conference in LA, and I attended one of their sessions by the head of hosting or hospitality standards or something, and they conveyed that that white sheets. There's a reason that hotels use white sheets, and there's a reason that guests prefer white sheets, and that reason is that it tells them that everything is sparkling clean. Yes, it does mean that you have to replace them a little bit more often, but that's just a cost of doing business because what the guest gets on their end is they walk in, they see everything is white, crisp, and clean, no stains, and it gives them a really reassuring feeling, which is super important during the pandemic. Sam says that, yeah, Rich. So yeah, the cleaning purposes. So you just have to wash them in hot water and bleach. Use a stain remover, spray them with that before you wash them, because unfortunately if you wash stained sheets without the stain remover, it's almost impossible to get it out afterwards. Sam is mentioning that there are payment issues with VRBO. That I'm not super aware of, but Sam, if you can perhaps elaborate. And the reason I'm not aware is because I thought with VRBO you run the payments through your own platform, like something like Stripe or PayPal. Again, I'm sorry about this the lag. It's something that happens with live. It's almost unavoidable. So thank you for your patience. Just waiting to see here if there are payment issues. If Sam can tell us a little bit more about what the payment issues are. Rich wants to know if I use a Ring video doorbell. No, but I do have a motion activated camera in one of my units. Not a unit, but in a row house that I co-manage. My Airbnbs are in condos, and those aren't allowed, unfortunately, in the hallway. And I'll tell you why I don't use Ring. And I don't actually normally recommend it. It's because you normally mount the Ring at a sort of, it's A, super visible and obvious, and B, it's easy to cover up. So I know that if you got an alert that your Ring was covered, then you would definitely be heading over there. But the downside of that is that you don't get to see what's going on between when it was covered up and when you get there. So instead, I use the motion activated camera. It's posted or attached really high, and it's inaccessible without a ladder to get to. So if I do see something that's going on that I don't like, then I obviously get up there or get over there, and because it's not really easily accessible, I can see what's happening between the time that I notice something's going wrong to the time that I get there. So video cameras, yes, good. Ring, I'm not sure it's the greatest addition for an Airbnb because it lacks that ability to continue to monitor once the guest is trying to do something they're not supposed to and they discover a video camera. Sam has answered that the payment issue on Verbo is that they're just not timely payments. So that's good information to know. Oh, and he also says the resolutions are not timely. So yeah, so lots of reasons to go with Verbo and lots of reasons not to. I have to admit that I'm super in favor of direct booking sites if you can make that work, because you're completely cutting out the middleman, and you have complete control over when you accept the payment, when you charge a guest credit card, that whole thing. Rich is asking if it's a wireless camera. It is wireless for the pure simple fact that it's easier to install. If you are able to do a wired camera, then that's probably best, because so we use a Blink camera, which is an Amazon company, and unfortunately we've been chewing through a lot of batteries lately. So if you had the opportunity to wire the camera in with Cat5 cable and electricity, then that's probably the gold standard. But if that's really difficult, then just choose something like I did, with like a Blink camera that's motion activated, operates on batteries, and then it'll send you alerts if the network is lost or the batteries are dead. So the only thing there is you just may make more trips to the property. These are some great questions. Please keep them coming. Goodness, I'm just checking the feed on YouTube, and it is short of terrible, very pixelated. I'll have to look into that. The feed on Facebook is bad too. Shoot. I'll give it another minute or two in case you think of any other questions that you want to ask. So Rich wants to know about cable or streaming services. I think that during the pandemic, when there's less things to do, less places that are open, less exploring that guests can do, I think you absolutely need to be considering these. So I do cable in my units, which I find is a differentiator between my competition because a lot of Airbnbs don't provide cable. My units all have capability to connect or stream somehow. So um, guests can log into their own Netflix accounts and then watch on the TVs easily. So I think that if you don't want to go to the route of cable, absolutely make sure that you have some way for your guests to access their online content, be it Netflix or HBO at home or Go, whatever it's called, the new Apple TV streaming service. So I think that gone are the days when we're able to say we don't have cable or TV. And if you were in a vibrant urban market with lots to do, like say Toronto or New York, it's probably fine because most people aren't going to be coming to those places to watch TV. But now I think with longer term stays and the inability to get out and explore, I think you've got to have at least capability to stream or actual cable TV. Oh, and just on that, like if you are looking for a way to do streaming, either Google Chromecast is like, I think they're $40 Canadian, so they're probably $30 US. So you can just add those to your TV super easily, and then just leave a little instruction card on how to stream, how to use it. And I think the other one, Amazon Fire Stick, is also super easy to set up and use. So, and also very inexpensive. So those are kind of two options that you have. Apple TV is great because it's easier to use and it doesn't require like a phone or something to stream with, but it's a little bit more money. Oh, Rich is in Atlanta, so everything is open. Then you're probably fine without cable. I mean, I would still, for 30 or $40, I would still probably get a Google Chromecast or an Amazon Fire Stick just to let people, they come home from a long day and then maybe they just want to sit on the couch and zone out to their favorite show on Netflix. You could also leave. So for me, if a guest doesn't have a Netflix account and they want to watch something, then I give them my username and password, and I have a profile specifically created for Airbnb guests so that they're not interrupting my shows and screwing up with the algorithm that is suggesting new shows to me. And I'm pretty sure you can do the same thing with Amazon Prime TV as well. Oh, and Rich says he's bought an Amazon Fire, yeah, to stream. So yeah, that should be fine. Um, it's generally, to be honest, it's generally older guests who are looking for cable because they just don't use Netflix or Amazon. I mean, they might, but their main go-to when they sit down to watch TV, it's the local media, like the local news or their regular Tuesday night show or whatever it is. So I've actually found that I've been able to attract some older guests more easily with having cable. And we know that those older guests, they're definitely not the ones who are going to be throwing parties and waking you up at 4 a.m. in the morning. So it's nice to attract them. Sam wants to know about smart pricing. So that's a big question, Sam. I will tell you what I think about it. So I am not a big fan of smart pricing on Airbnb. I've tried it multiple times. I've turned it off. I've turned it on. Um, the first time I tried it was because I was really hoping it was going to actively manage my price, which it did not. Unfortunately, it's generally constantly trying to drive prices down. It's got a very simple um, it has a very simple like algorithm or engine that's driving it. So if you're not booked, it drops the price. I then I added it again later on and then I really adjusted the parameters so it wouldn't keep dropping the price. And my hope was that I would see a bump in search results because I was using one of the Airbnb features. And unfortunately, that didn't really prove true either. So I don't use smart pricing. What I do use, though, because so the Airbnb algorithm will reward you for making constant updates to your calendar. Um, Either by changing the price or blocking or unblocking dates. That all shows activity on your listing and it shows that you're actively managing it. So the Airbnb algorithm will reward you with a higher ranking in search. Um, and that can be a bit burdensome to log in every day and change a price or block or unblock a day. So there are services out there that you can subscribe to that will change your price every day and it will adjust the price based on market conditions. The one I use is called Price Labs. There's another one called what's the other one called? Wheelhouse. And there's a third one. Beyond Pricing is what it's called, I think. This is super exciting. So, A Rich and Jazzy Life says he's getting his keys to his first place this weekend. Oh, this Friday. Rich is, or Rich and Jazzy Life is, did you buy the house or it's an arbitrage or what's the setup? And I know and then there's another question from A Rich and Jazzy Life, which is how often do I change the price? You've got to change it at least a few times a week, for sure. Even if you're just changing it up and down $1. If you go onto my YouTube channel, I've done a few videos on how to deal with pricing on Airbnb, and I'm just trying to see. Let's see, what is that video? I've done quite a few now. Let me just see. I'm pulling it up. My channel and library. Nope, not that. Videos. It was a little bit ago. Actually, Sam, I think this one would be the best. Not Sam, Rich and Jazzy Life. I think this one would be the best for you. So this is a video I did here. And it's about trying to get strike-through pricing on Airbnb. So once you're priced with the market and you are making subtle changes every couple days, up or down $1 or $2, you want to get into some more advanced pricing tactics, which include dropping your price at a fixed time. And so that when a guest is searching on Airbnb, they're going to be going through and they'll see your regular price and then a line through that regular price and then their actual price. And so it's effectively the only way to put your Airbnb on sale through the Airbnb platform. So I posted the video in the comments. So have a look at that and feel free to hit me up with any other questions. Rich and Jazzy, 2-bedroom loft in Midtown Atlanta. That's going to be fantastic. And correct me if I'm wrong, Midtown Atlanta is the new downtown Atlanta. I visited Atlanta about 5 years ago, and we unfortunately made the mistake of staying in the downtown close to Olympic Park. And we discovered that there was really not a whole lot to do in that area other than the aquarium and the Olympic Park, which is just a park. So I think you've probably picked the right spot. I think the stream and me have caught up. I'm happy to stay on and answer some questions, any more questions if you have them, and I'll give a couple minutes for this message to catch up to the stream. I think we're caught up. So not seeing any other questions. Oh, hey, is January a slow month? Rich and Jazzy, yes. So the caveat is it depends where you are. Thinking about Atlanta, I'm not 100% sure if you've got either sporting events or conferences. So conferences are big in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. You might be just fine. You may have a more steady year. Which months are slower? That's again, it's really dependent on your market conditions. A good way to figure out. I mean, you can look at hotel prices and see how they go up and down during the year. Just go on booking.com or something and put in different dates. The other thing is again, look at, like, there's sporting events in Atlanta. If they happen in the winter, then you're probably fine. If there's major conferences, then you're probably fine. I think the major tourist season in Atlanta is the summer, but I could be wrong. My pleasure. Rich and jazzy life. Okay, so I think I'm going to call the live session, live streaming, to a close. A rich and jazzy life. Feel free to reach out to me via email, and I can answer some more of your questions. I just want to thank everybody for joining me today, and I really do hope that you will take my 5-minute quiz to see where you are as an Airbnb host. I think that understanding where you are and understanding where you need to go is really going to be key for you. And it also, those answers are probably going to unlock hundreds, if not thousands, in more revenue on Airbnb, because you'll know exactly where to focus and what changes you need to make. So again, that quiz link is here. And I will be back next week. It may be on Thursday instead of Wednesday, but it'll be the same. And we'll go back to 11 a.m. I didn't want to do 11:15 or 1:15 because that's often a remembrance time moment. So I delayed it a little bit. So next week, either Wednesday at 11 a.m., 1 p.m. Eastern, or Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 p.m. Pacific. Okay, thanks everybody. I hope to see you next week.